Well, I've talked about Batman versus Superman before, but that was actually before the film came out. So where I said, there's a lot of warning signs, ahead of us to kind of sort of at least suggest that the upcoming film will be really, really bad. And if the early reviews are any indication, and if you're like me and you saw it on Thursday night through specific channels we cannot specify, those suspicions were confirmed because it is a really, really bad movie. I'm really sure how I'd rank it in the pantheon of bad comic book movies. I mean, it's not Howard the Duck. I'm not sure if it's Batman and Robin level bad, but I mean it's certainly a huge, huge disappointment. I'd say it's probably up there with the first Amazing Spider-Man movie and the Dark Knight Rises, movies that had so much hype behind them. But when they finally come out, they just don't live up to expectations whatsoever. And I already made a video, sort of elaborating, or maybe I wrote something, I can't recall, I do both a lot, and kind of laying out, the reason why I thought it would be a bad movie. And everything, single thing that I said, all these things I was worried about, guess what? They came true. You can go back and watch that video, and it's like a negative review of the movie, 3 months in advance. I got everything down. Zack Snyder's terrible melodrama, the awful overacting. It was way too dark. They're trying so hard to force us to make the Justice League movie and build into a sort of episodic film franchise. The fact that, they didn't really have an impetus to make a good movie because he was going to make a lot of money anyway. All of it 100% true. I'm psychic. Actually, I'm not psychic. I can just read the lines and tell when producers don't care and just trying to make money out of an existing franchise. Now, I'm doing this on a Friday afternoon. So who knows? The weekend's not over. It might make $150 million, domestically. It might make $300 million over the weekend internationally. I don't know. That's possible. It could go both ways. So it may be a financial success, but considering, they spent, God, how much money? How many? 500 million marketing it and making it? They gotta, make at least $1 billion here to kind of make it all, even out, right? And I don't know if it's going to do that. I mean, it could end up making, $1 billion. I mean, Deadpool, of all things, is approaching 700 million. So, I mean, it's not really out of, the ballpark that these things happen. But to me, I'm a comic book fan. I grew up reading the Spider-Man comics. I'm pretty well versed on the characters. But, I don't live in that universe, right? I don't go to the comic book store every week. I haven't actually bought a comic since I was in middle school. I'm familiar with the characters. I read stuff online. And even then, I kind of realize the limitations because with the comic books, they're not really meant to be feature-length films. They're not standalone pictures that tell a story. They're episodic. They're like TV shows where everything ends with a cliffhanger, and the idea is to always leave the door open for another movie. It's one of those things where the idea of the whole Marvel universe and DC universe now is not really to make great, outstanding cinema. It's basically to self-perpetuate itself. To keep making movies, introducing characters, and making these crossover pictures, basically to justify its own existence. And I think, looking at the modern comic book movies, everything from X-Men in 2000 onward, I mean, it's been a mixed bag. We've seen some really, really good movies. We've seen Spider-Man 2 and The Dark Knight. But for the most part, they've been kind of middling. Like the Avengers, entertaining event film for sure, but a great movie, not really. You can say that about all the Iron Man movies. I thought Guardians of the Galaxy was hugely overrated, even though it made $1 bajillion. I thought Deadpool, the R-rated movie, is going to be the death knell of the comic book superhero genre. What do I know? It made hundreds of millions of dollars. So I keep predicting that eventually there's going to be a comic movie that comes around that's just so inflated, that's just so full of itself, that's just so, smarmy and built to justify itself and weak need and just exploitational and just really having no purpose other than to, just create more movies, that eventually it's going to kind of spiral, the entire genre around. It's like with Gates of Heaven, the movie by Michael, was it Cimarron, back in 1980? It pretty much ended the whole New Hollywood movement and the whole Hollywood auteur thing where directors lost control from the studios because they kept going over budget and delivering stuff that really wasn't audience pleasing. Well, right now superheroes are the reason why Hollywood is still marketable. You know, because those are pretty much the only kind of movies, those and like the young adult stuff like Twilight and what else, and Harry Potter. And okay, maybe some of the Pixar movies too. So adult movies are not really making a lot of money at the box office. If you want to call Deadpool an adult movie, then go ahead, but I'm just saying, calling that the level of mature cinema on par with Schindler's List or anything like that is really, really grasping at it. But basically, when you look at these movies, you look at Batman vs. Superman, you look at the Avengers, you look at Captain America, you look at Ninja Turtles, you look at Suicide Squad. All these films, you know, they're aiming for the PG-13 rating, and they do that to draw in the adult fans who have a connection with the characters, who've been longtime followers of the universe. But it also, more importantly, is to draw in the kids, to get the juvenile consumers, so you can make the toys and the action figures and the breakfast cereals, you know, and all that other stuff, and just keep building the brand and marketing and just make money and more product and consume, and make the characters so ubiquitous that they're everywhere, and no matter what, everywhere you go, you see their faces on things. So it's basically, you know, a cash cow, right? The entire point is not to make great cinema. I mean, if you make a good movie, you know, or an entertaining movie, that's an aside. But the whole point is, of course, just keep making money, keep building the brand, get more products out there. And I mean, that's really the Achilles heel of a superhero movie. I mean, they might be entertaining, they might be, you know, pretty good genre pictures. But, you know, when you're watching, you know, Captain America, or you're watching the Ninja Turtles, or you're watching Batman vs. Superman, or you're watching Wonder Woman, or Gambit, or whatever the stuff they have coming out, I mean, you know they're not going to be great movies. They're not aiming to make a, you know, really great filmmaking because they don't have to. That's not the intent. The only thing that matters is you make it good enough that people go see it, and you make it accessible to kids so you can make the toys and the action figures, the Happy Meal things, and you just make more and more money. And right now, you know, Marvel has it down to a science because all the movies feel the same. You know, they have the same humor, they have the same lighting, the cinematography is, you know, interchangeable, and they're making a ton of money off that. The question is, though, how long is that sustainable? I mean, are we still going to be having these things make as much money as they're making now 10 years from now? I think a lot of that's going to hinge on the DC movies. You know, how much money will they make? You know, will people actually go out and pay, you know, $300-400 million to watch Wonder Woman? Will they go out there and spend all that much money to watch, you know, the Green Lantern reboot, or the Flash, or, you know, Doom Patrol, or Ambush Bug, or whatever else they have coming out? Is that going to be sustainable? And I think that's probably going to be the crucial breaking point. When we see these BDC offerings falter and falter hard, I think Marvel, you know, they're in, you know, good standing, but eventually, you know, all great empires collapse. You already saw Joss Whedon leave. We're going to see the other big guys behind it. You know, James Gunn, all these other guys, all the big script writers. Eventually, they're going to get concerned about money. And the way the Marvel films are lined up, all it takes is like one of these guys to, you know, leave the film series. You know, if Robert Downey Jr. said, "You're not paying me enough money, I'm not playing Iron Man again," the entire, you know, universe is shot. Right? So, I mean, all we're just waiting is for that one monkey wrench to fly into the machine mark and the entire thing just unravels. And I think we're probably, you know, a good 2 or 3 years away from that because, you know, eventually, you know, consumer tastes, you know, they're fickle. I mean, right now, we're all about the superhero movies because we're finally actually seeing, you know, decent ones after waiting years and years. And I mean, it's cool to see the entire Marvel and DC universe on stage, but where do you go from there? I mean, you can only have the Infinity War so many times, you know, but you can only fight Darkseid and Thanos so many times before it becomes predictable, and it becomes basically a trope unto itself, and you got to move on to something new. And I think right now we're all, you know, absorbed in the fantasy. You know, we're totally cool with, you know, living in a superhero world, make everything comic booky, and make everything where it's kind of reflecting on 9/11 and ISIS and all that stuff, but in a safe, you know, sort of cartoony manner. And I think eventually, you know, the reality always kind of dictates entertainment. Eventually, we're going to want something a little bit more human. We're going to want something that's not grandiloquent. We're going to want something that actually reflects our own lives. And I think we're probably, you know, like I said, a good 2, 3, 4 years away from that happening. And, you know, basically, we look back on comic movies, someone we look back on, you know, all the other genres that had, you know, their decade, their heyday. usurped and moving on to something new. It's a natural cycle. So, I mean, the movies are, generally getting worse and worse. They're becoming very predictable. They're paint by numbers. Eventually, the audiences catch on. They realize this, and eventually the tentpole collapses. And I think that's basically the first story of Batman vs. Superman is the greater arc of, cinematic history. It's the beginning and the end of the comic book and superhero genre, or at least the big superhero